I have to take care of the employees. I have to take care of the suppliers. I have to invest in the community. We have to manage the business for the long haul. The value of a company today is intangible assets. That's the people. That is the community. That is having the right partnership with your suppliers. If you don't have that right, that company will dissolve. There is no way around that. I am in the camp of companies are there to assist in solving society's problems. You're either going to make a product that's going to solve a problem, or you're going to make a product that's going to create a problem.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Conscious Capitalists with myself, Timothy Henry, and my partner in making the world a better place through business, Raj Sisodia. Hey there, Raj.
Hey, Timothy. Greetings from Bangalore, India, the so-called Silicon Valley of India. So this is, you want to talk about booming and bustling. I mean, this city is off the charts.
Really?
You know, this win. Yeah, it's intense.
Ah.
I mean, there's so much activity and it's so sprawling. It takes like 1.5 to 2 hours to get anywhere. And, you know, it could be midnight or it could be 6 a.m. I mean, things are just hopping, you know.
Wow. It sounds like Atlanta.
Much more than Atlanta, I have to say. I was a little taken aback, I have to say. You know,
Interesting.
And there's a conference here, the Indus Entrepreneurs, which is a global organization of people from the subcontinent entrepreneurs. So they're having their global meet here these 3 days. So there are like 15,000 people from all over the world have descended on Bangalore, you know. And so I'll be speaking tomorrow at that event. So it's fun.
Sounds like fun. Well, today we have sort of a friend of the family in Roosevelt Giles. And let me introduce Roosevelt. Roosevelt has over 35 years of experience managing domestic and global strategic and operationally complex operations. He's the founder of Endpoint Ventures, a holding company with investments in over 13 companies. He holds several board positions, including, very importantly, he's the chairman of the Stakeholder Impact Foundation. We're going to talk a lot about that. He's the former chairman of the board of Atlanta Life Insurance Company, former chairman of the board of Hendron Capital Management, RIA with $10 billion under management. He's the former chairman of IMS Asia and IMS Africa, board member of Tabby Inc., advisory board member of the NASDAQ Board of Excellence, Just Capital, chairman of the Business Insurance DEI Council, chairman of GHI Holding Healthcare, and a member of the Conscious Capitalism Board. Let alone, and we'll come back to this later, my nickname for him, well-earned, is the Marathon Man. He looks a lot like Dustin Hoffman, so we sometimes get them mixed up, but we'll come back to the Marathon Man thing in a bit. He received the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Finalist Award in 2001, and he holds a BS degree in business admin and has studied at the University of South Carolina, Limestone College, with advanced management courses from Harvard and MIT. Welcome, Roosevelt.
Thank you. Thank you, Timothy and Raj.
I want to start with the work you've been doing on boards. So that's one of the areas where you are one of the world's leading experts and been doing a lot of work. Maybe introduce us to the work you've been doing with boards and the perspective that you bring to it.
Well, definitely not a board expert, there from that perspective. What led me to focus in this area is my background. Having grown up as a sharecropper, picking cotton, and only was able to go to school when it rained, it taught me from the standpoint that in order to minimize some injustices in the world, that has to come from the board of directors. One of the mentors, Roger Milliken, who was the CEO of Milliken and Company at the time, was a mentor to me, and mentored me from the standpoint that the head rots, the head rots from the head, right? And so if you can get the right people in the right seat, then things can change. And that's why my entire career I have focused on the leadership and the leadership in my companies, the companies I'm invested in, to ensure that the companies are built not only from the standpoint of the short run, but also in the long run as well. And the way you go about doing that is that you have to take care of those who take care of you, and those are the people.
And when you've set up the Stakeholder Impact Foundation, say a little bit more about what the goal was of setting that up and some of the programs you're running under that.
Yeah, I was with some friends of mine. We were running there in Cape Town, South Africa, and we were talking about economic disparities and the fact that capitalism is a good thing if it's used the right way, and if you look at the capital allocation that boards of directors have when you look at from a global perspective, it's trillions of dollars. So having capital allocation of trillions of dollars and having the right individuals sitting at the table, they can allocate that capital in a way in which everyone could participate, because no governance whatsoever can match the capital allocation of business. They can't even come close. So we cannot depend wholly on business to help solve society's problems. We have to work in concert, with the major capital allocators, and those are the individuals that happen to sit around that board table. And so after I came back to the States, and I was thinking, and I said that we need to really take a look at how boards function and how they look at how capital allocation should be done. And that's what led me to create this program. This program, along with some of my other colleagues, it's a 4.5-month program, and the program is tuition free. And what we do is that we take we call them fellows, through this 4.5-month, very intense 4 months, and showing them exactly as close to as possible on how and what it means to have a seat at that table. We go through everything. We have the vice chancellors and the former chief justice of Delaware teaching, the rules of business, the fiduciary duties and things of business. We have leaders from the major Fortune 500 companies, mid-cap companies, private equity. We have the regulators, the SEC, PCAOB, coming in. We have supply chain experts like from Lowe's, Home Depot, General Motors coming in and get into all the committees, the audit committees, comp committees, nomination and governance committees. We spend 3 days on AI and cyber crisis management. We also have the chair of the Princeton Anthropology Department, Dr. Carolyn Rao. She comes in and speaks to people, that the anthropology of the people sitting around the table, and so we, in the beginning of the cohort, each cohort member gets assigned a publicly traded company, and they have 17 case studies around that publicly traded company. Is what they have, and in this particular cohort that's going to graduate in a couple of weeks, they have a case study of a shareholder activist, where they have gone out and identified a company where they are going to launch a friendly, or a white hat, you might say, activist campaign against that company is what they're going to do. And once that they complete that, we're going to have experts, activists, and institutional investors and proxy advisors like the ISS and Glass Lewis's to come in and evaluate them. And then we're going to hand that company that report. So you can see from the standpoint of taking all of these governance issues and making them apply to what they're going to see when they actually go out and sit around that boardroom table. So very, 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 very exciting.
Yeah.
And the other part,
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, go ahead.
The other part I'd like to say is that we did something creative a couple of years ago. And you all, when I explain these, oh, that's been around forever, and that is true. Taylor Morrison, which is the 5th largest home builder in the U.S., listed on the New York Stock Exchange, run by Cheryl Palmer. Cheryl is one of our faculty members in the program. She teaches part of the audit committee module. And I asked Cheryl, I said, Cheryl, how can we accelerate the adoption of the next generation of board leaders? Okay. And I said that, what if we could get companies, starting with you, Cheryl, if we can get them to put up 1 or 2 slots on their board as non-fiduciary board members, they don't vote, but they get assigned to the respective committee, they attend the board meetings, and they're bringing a skill set that the board needs that currently do not have. And let's make this like a fellowship where it's a 2-year rotation. So we bring them in, they now getting experience on as a publicly traded board member is what they're getting. It provides succession planning for the board is what it provides. And it also, as they roll off, okay, after the 2-year, now they can get a fiduciary role, okay, on another company is what they can get. And when you look at the average age of the board members today being over 65, 66, companies should be starting to look at adopting this type of approach, so that in the other part, I'm working with several other companies right now where they have a board member that is 74 that's going to be leaving the board. And now they're going to look at putting on the board fellowship program, and they will have that board member to mentor the new board member that's coming on, and the 74-year-old will now swap places, go into the advisory role, and now mentor the newbie is what will happen. And again, this concept has been around for 10 million years. It's nothing new, but it allows companies to be able to bring in the skill sets that they really need today, because things are changing so fast. And when you go back to the average age, those individuals tested in different times. The risk profiles that they came in on the company were totally different, and it's totally different today. So you got to have totally different skill sets is what you have to have. So we're very, very excited about that.
Well, I love this. And there's, I guess, sort of a tension, isn't there, in the sense that you're trying to prepare people to be on a board in a time when there's complete uncertainty about the kind of issues they're going to deal with.
Right.
So it's a little bit like we want to train you for the decathlon, and then at the last moment, we're going to tell you which sport you're actually going to focus on. And it may be something different, and it may not be one of these 10.
Right.
But we're going to prepare you. And,
right.
How do you find that balance in terms of like bringing people along so that they have the background of like, well, this is how a board functions, and yet at the same time prepare them for a world in which I sometimes call it double, triple VUCA, like we're really uncertain about things. How do you find that balance in terms of preparation?
A great question there. The individuals who come into to our program are C-suite executives or one level below the C-suite. They present to the board. Some of them present to the boards today, so they understand that management board interaction. All right, is what they understand. We also have some though presidents of nonprofits. Is what we have there also. And when you look at from the standpoint of today, if you're going on a board, you need to have some industry experience, understanding the industry. And what we tell our fellows is the fact that take a look at the industry, okay? Several industry that you believe that you can add value. What value can you add to that industry? And once you figure that out, all right, because that's the base. And now you go and take a look at companies that you would like to be affiliated with, all right, that you can add value of going on that particular board. So industry knowledge is very key. It's not mandatory, it's what it's not, because you can also learn it, all right, it's what can happen. But having that base knowledge of industry is a plus, big plus.
So Roosevelt, putting on our conscious capitalism hat, Having served on a couple of boards, I have to say that the conversations were almost overwhelmingly rooted in the profit maximization, shareholder value paradigm, right? And getting them to shift that towards a more purpose-driven approach is a challenge, because most of the people who are on boards have come up in the ranks and have been very successful under the traditional paradigm.
Right.
And I see their role as that, and they still define fiduciary responsibility as to the shareholders, not to the stakeholders. So how have you tried to make that shift, and how successful have you been at getting boards to start to broaden that lens and think about all stakeholders, and also think about the purpose of the company and take the lead on that, and if the management isn't already heading that way?
Yeah. Again, when you look at the board composition today, most of the board's members came from the CEO, CFO, COO skill sets. Those were the prerequisite skill sets that you have to be a board member. And I had just recently, 9-10 months ago, in talking about the board fellowship program to a company, I was there addressing their board, and one of the board members said, if you have not been a CEO or CFO, you should not sit on the board, period. That's all I have to say about it. I mean, he was just point blank, all right? And when you look at the fact of education, most board members feel that they do not need continuing education. I was a CEO, I was CFO, I don't need to deal with that. I understand how businesses work. I know the right questions to ask. Yeah, you knew the right questions to ask back then. When what I call compliance governance. In the compliance governance model, yes, you knew the questions to ask. Today, the value of a company is intangible assets. It's what it is. And so, therefore, that means what? Your brand, your IP, your patents. So what that goes to? That goes to human capital. That goes to the people. All right? And so my thing there, Raj and Timothy, is that you got your financial capital, your human capital, and your social capital. These are the risks that boards have to manage today, those three. It's what has to happen. A lot of, a lot of board members don't understand that shareholders don't own the company. Shareholders don't own the company. And it's amazing to me that the numbers of board members and CEOs that don't understand that. A shareholder only has a contract. And the board's duty, the fiduciary duty of the board, is to the company for the ultimate benefit of the common shareholder. All right? It's what it is. Because the company is a legal person. Go back to Citizens United. A company is a person. It's a legal person. You can't own a person. We tried that experiment once. It doesn't work.
Yeah. For a couple hundred years, and it was...
It doesn't...
we don't want to go there anymore.
Yeah. We don't want to go there anymore. So therefore, get them to understand the fact that a board have the ability to do anything that is legal and do not have to be concerned with plaintiff attorneys filing derivative actions for the company against us. Boards have a lot of leeway, is what they have. The problem it comes down to is leadership. Having the right leader that understand, because this company, when you form it, it's a legal entity, and it is to live forever. It's living in perpetuity. And so, and you also, if you look at the common shareholders, who are these shareholders? These are the truck drivers. These are the stylists. These are the mechanics. These are the accountants. These are the marketing people who have pensions that they have invested in an ABC company, and those funds are now shifted to the the index funds, and the index fund now go out and invest those funds in our company for capital, which is permanent capital pretty much to a degree. So they want that company to succeed, and they want that company to have a decent return. So when they retire, they know that they have access to those funds. So it's the board's job to manage that company for the perpetual benefit of an entity that will live forever. It's what they have to do. And that's where, again, it all comes back to leadership.
If I could just clarify one thing that you said, Roosevelt. You said that the board has to manage it for the benefit of the common shareholders. But what about the other stakeholders? If your duty is to the flourishing of the company, and doesn't that include its stakeholders beyond just the shareholders?
That's awesome, Raj. You know what that means? You know what that means for the ultimate benefit of the common shareholder? In order for that to live in perpetuity, I have to take care of the employees. I have to take care of the suppliers. I have to invest in the community. All right, we have to invest in the business. It's what we have to do. We have to manage the business for the long haul. It's what we have to do. And the only way you go back to, again, the value of a company today is intangible assets. Okay? And so that's the people. That is the community. That is having the right partnership with your suppliers. If you don't have that right, that company will dissolve. There is no way around that. I am in the camp of companies are there to assist in solving society's problems. You're either going to make a product that's going to solve a problem, or you're going to make a product that's going to create a problem.
Yeah. Well, what I love about that, Roosevelt, and what I think what we're sort of coming around to is this difference around the idea of, stewardship. Like, in a sense, a board should be the stewards of an organization. And that changes the frame of reference from fiduciary responsibility within the context of being long-term stewards of the business.
Right.
Now, that's what we know sort of makes sense, and yet it's not common sense in that the majority of publicly traded boards are constantly seeming to be incredibly sensitive to a small percentage of their shareholders who are the ones that are most likely to make the noise. And activists can have huge influence with 5, 6, 7% ownership. And this conundrum to me is amazing because, when companies were first set up, it was clear owners were there. And the whole point of capital markets was to help the owners raise money so they could invest in the business. And now we're in a stock market where it's got nothing to do with raising money. And the whole question of ownership has become really weird. Like, if I'm a day trader and I own stock in the company for a day, in what conceivable sense am I an owner? If I'm an activist who's coming in and really is going to hold stock for 3 or 4 months, in what sense am I an owner? And yet, that's having tremendous influence on the decisions of boards. And that doesn't seem to be getting less of an issue. And so I'm wondering, how did we get into this conundrum where, we have this sense that somehow the board's responsible to the shareholders and not to the stewardship of the long-term continuation and thriving success of the business.
And that's where, as a management team and the board, you need to know who your major shareholders are. You need to communicate your strategy, all right, and your position with your long-term shareholders. You don't want, the noise traders and those folks that are coming in, 15 minutes and coming out of your stock. You don't want that. You want shareholders that's going to understand your business, take a look at the long haul in your business, and you are producing the results based on the fact that you are bringing everybody along with you, the community, your suppliers, your employees, and everything else. All right, that's what you're doing. And that's where a lot of boards fall short. And if you take a look at a lot of activist campaigns, what you see them going after are the board skill sets. So the boards do not have the skill sets, okay, to manage the risks in the organization. And by not doing so, this is why how the company have fallen out of favor. All right, it's what has actually happened. So you've got to understand who your shareholders happen to be, and communicate to them. And the board have to give the CEO air cover, so the CEO can manage the company outside of this quarterly dance that they have to do. The other part, you have to blame regulators. It was a terrible idea to link management compensation to the share price, totally. So that's been the problem, that we find ourselves in, on the fact that the average age of a CEO is 5 to 7 years. All right. So I come into the company, I got 5 or 6 years to build up my estate. All right. It's what I've got to do. And what is that person incentivized to do? To make the quarterly number. The CEO is incentivized to make the quarterly number. And so that has to change. And the way it changes is the leadership and the mindset of the individuals that are sitting around that board table, to change that mindset. So you're not chasing that, because your customers, your shareholders understand. They understand your business. They understand your strategy. And so they will give you air cover against those noise traders sitting out there, is what will happen.
So Roosevelt, you talked about the diversity in skills that are necessary that in today's boards, beyond CFO, CXO, etc. But also, we need gender diversity, because we've had a very masculine view of the world, and there's a certain mindset that goes along with that. And there's extreme risk-taking at times. There's a sort of blindness to the human side of things at times. So we need that. We need age diversity. We need younger people, because they understand the modern world, the technological changes that are happening much more. And certainly we need ethnic representation as well. So have you seen in your experience tangible examples where that has actually made a difference in decisions that are made, where you have that kind of diversity, where another board would have had blind spots in those areas?
Yes, especially you look at age. Typically, the average age of a board, coming on a board is in the late 50s, because I'm a retired CEO, or I'm an active CEO, and I can sit on one board. That's what I can do. Because again, if you look at every company today is a technology company. Every company is a technology company. So everything runs on a technology underbelly. It's what it runs on. And those CEOs that don't understand that will soon find out, real quickly. And so on the diversity piece, you have to have the age, like for example, Wynn Resorts. Wynn Resorts brought on a 30-year-old on their board because of gaming. All right. You don't have 70-year-olds and 68 and 69-year-olds understanding gaming. All right. All right. For that age group. And when you look at companies in general, we are seeing the shift to specialized skill sets, which will bring in the diversity piece around age, ethnicity, gender, etc. is what is starting to happen. No longer, because of the complexity of companies today, you cannot have a board that is rooted in just CFO, COO, CFO type of skill sets. It doesn't work. And boards are going through this regeneration around, well, how large should the board be? All right. And there's been a lot of hesitancy. But then it's sort of like, you're being a little hypocrite, aren't you? If you go to a function, a CEO will get up and say, I bring you greetings from my 150,000 associates. And so you're managing 150,000 associates worldwide, but you don't want to increase your board size from 9 to 11 because it's unmanageable. So I can't manage 11 individuals, but I can manage 150,000 individuals. So the two just doesn't. The two just does not work. The other part of this is that who's your customer? Who is your client? And that is the realization that's getting ready to hit companies smack in the face. And taking a look at who is my customer? How do I understand that customer? Okay. And if I don't have someone that understand via age, gender, or ethnicity, that understand that customer base, which allows me to go on CNBC and trout about my total shareholder returns and my earnings per share, I'm out of business. I am out of business. Because the only way I can do that, to make those numbers, is that we have to understand our customer base and know where the puck is going. And the only way you're going to know how the puck is going is to have those diversity of skill sets on ethnicity, on age, and skill set. That's the only way that's going to happen. So I'm very optimistic on the diversity piece.
So I love that. And, I'm in your camp, that you need more diversity of thought. You just make better decisions the more diverse points of view you have at the table. You want to make good decisions and everybody's thinking the same way. That leads to groupthink. That's not helpful. You want those different ideas, those different ways of thinking on the board. And I believe there's a lot of data emerging that sort of says boards that are more diverse end up being more productive boards, and the company is more profitable. And yet, so the data experience says this works, and yet the political winds today are like, it's just another DEI program. We're not into that wokeism kind of thing. And, as both a man of color and as somebody who's deeply experienced in this place, how do you answer that when that comes? And there's this new trend pushing against this idea of like, that's just wokeism.
That goes back to leadership. It goes back to who are the people you have sitting around the table. So what you're saying is that if I go and hire a woman or a person of color as a chief marketing officer, I'm now woke, is what I am. And my customer base happened to be 70%, people of color. All right, that's my customer base, which allows me to make my EPS and my TSR. That's what that allows me to do. And so therefore, as a board and as a management team, we're not going to do that. It's what we're not going to do. So now that's where you're definitely breaching your fiduciary duty. All right. You're also getting into that fine line of being able to do what? To manage the corporation as a perpetual entity that's going to last forever. All right. It's what you're doing. The other piece is this. Some companies that I'm affiliated with and are seeing, they're not stopping. They're going all in, is what they're doing. They're just not talking about it. They're doing that. They're doing their work. It's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because they understand the fact that this is a competitive advantage for them. They're going to see their competitors crash and burn because again, you go back to who's being creative. What type of culture is the leadership and the board is setting for the organization? And if they're setting a culture which is not inclusive, so guess what? I'm going across the street to the company that is inclusive and who will value me as an individual and value what I bring to the table. And so I bring it down to the dollars and cents is what I bring it down to. Most companies' interest is about total shareholder returns and earnings per share.
And I get that, Roosevelt. And I want to push on this a little harder because it seems to me, you say, yeah, it comes down to leadership, but very particularly it comes down to the chairman of the board. Because ultimately, in many cases, it's the chair of the board and the head of the governance committee who are proposing the next board members, who are ultimately responsible for the composition of that board. It's a committee and it's the chair. And if the chair isn't pressing the governance committee and the governance committee isn't pressing, then none of this happens. And so it seems to me the lever is in getting the chairs and the head of governance to think differently and act, more importantly, act differently. And I'm curious, like, what do we need to do? Because, Fortune 500, okay, that's 500 chair people.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get to 500 chair people and shake them up, get them in a room, don't let them out until they've
and to you and to your point there, that is where the ultimate owner being those individuals out there making our lives a whole lot easier, the people on the front line who have their money invested in that company through the index funds. Those individuals also have to make it known. All right, it's what they have to do. The other part of this is that if a board does not want to do the hard work and make this hard decision, they should resign. They should resign and let those come in who will make those tough decisions. All right, is what will happen. And the only other way to push this is for the stakeholders to initiate activist campaign against the company to make those changes. Because a lot of board members view sitting on the board as very prestigious. It's very, the compensation is very good, is what it is. And so they do not want to give that up, is what they do not want to do. And there has to be some hydraulic pressure put on the chair and the board and the management team to start to make these changes. Because a lot of them right now are hiding behind, oh, well, that's woke, and DEI is something that you don't want to touch that because it's kryptonite, and all of those things. But when you do that, you're sending the signal to your employees and to your customers, all right, that you're not inclusive. It's what you're not. And you're going to see that being reflected, okay, in the earnings of these companies and their ability to attract the actual talent that they need. And because there's just no way around it. The other part, too, is this. You look at population. You look at population migration. The population migration is shifting around the world. And so when you look at a lot of the companies, there's not going to be enough white people to buy the product. So if you don't have enough white people to buy your product, what are you going to do? So you're not going to get a $100 million pay package or $50 million pay package because of the fact that you're not earning. There's no earnings. So again, I'm very optimistic. It's what I am. Maybe I live in Crazyville. I'll admit that. Because there is no out. There is no out. And so again, you look at the index funds, the BlackRocks, the State Street, the Vanguards, the ISSs, the Glad Lewises and things. Those individuals have a lot of clout, is what they have. They can put pressure on these companies, all right, to do the right thing, is what they can do. And those companies will get pressure from their customer, the ultimate owner, okay, of the shares in their respective company. There's no good answer, is what it's not. But all I do know is that their self-interest is making those numbers. And you can't make those numbers if you don't have the people and you don't have the innovation. Because one of the things, too, on one of our case studies in our program, we had the fellows to go and look at what how many patents have your company filed versus the top 3 competitors? And it's amazing the differences and how it correlates back to the earnings in the company. Because this company has a culture of innovation. That means they're treating their people right for those people to show up every day wanting to do their best and be very creative in doing that. Versus the other competitors, competing company, there's nothing. And those are facts. You can't dispute those.
Yeah.
And the mindset has to be, if you don't have the short term, you will not have the long term. That's what you will not have. And if you don't treat these people, you don't treat your people right. You don't bring them into the fold. All right? And that's what Roger Millikan taught me, is the fact that you bring in everybody, the communities, everybody you bring into the table. And he brought them into meetings, the suppliers, the communities, the local officials, everybody, and spoke to them from the standpoint of, this is what we're doing, give us input and things. And that is one of the best run organizations on the planet.
And that's a good segue, Roosevelt. No, excuse me. We like to focus as much on the personal journey and who made, or how did you become the leader and the human that you are, and the consciousness elevation and awakening that happened along the way. So let's talk about some of that. You mentioned briefly your childhood, and I heard you speak at the CEO Summit. It was an incredibly moving talk. People were moved to tears and deeply inspired by where you came from and what you overcame, and the experiences that you had. Starting out, as you said, in sharecropping, which for most of us, we don't even understand what that is exactly, but you explained it to us. And so how do you go from there? And then I think you got, in a way, discovered, or Mr. Milken saw you in a way that others hadn't. And then that kind of got you started on your journey. So if you could take us towards that dimension a little bit.
I'm one of 10 kids, a family of 8 girls and 2 boys. I'm number 9. And a lot of women.
Well, that's good. That's
a lot of women in there. So that's why I know that women can run the world, is what I know. And so being born as a sharecropper, son of a sharecropper, because sharecropping was nothing but one step above slavery, is what it was. And you went into a partnership. We call it strategic partnerships today. You went into a strategic partnership with the plantation owner, and you rented the land, and all the sharecropping farms had general stores. So you purchase all of your supplies and fertilizers and things and seed from them, and you harvest the crops, and it wasn't a competitive system where you can go and harvest your crops and go and get to the competitive market and get the best price, for your product. You couldn't do that because you only had a sole source. You had to give your product to the plantation owner, and the plantation owner went and bidded the prices, for the cotton. And so at the end of that, you go and settle up, and you find that you didn't make any money. Because during that year, you were putting on credit your food, your seed, your fertilizer, your gas, and all of those supplies, right? And they marking it up, and and all of this kind of stuff. And it's good. And I recall my dad when I went with him, and the guy said, "Well, Enormous, you almost broke even, and you have a good crop next year. You might be able to etch out." A couple of dollars of what you might be able to do. And I saw the expression on my dad's face. All right. And he said that, Roosevelt, and he told all of us, you cannot allow this to be your future. You need to get all the learning and education you can get, because what you put between these ears, no one can ever take it away from you. They can strip you of everything else, but they can never take this away from you. And that motivated all of us. Out of the 10 kids, 8 of us went on to college, on academic scholarships. And so I was good in math and things. So I went into business and computer science in school. And I got a job in Milliken as a programmer. And so from there, I got introduced to him, and he took a liking to me, is what he did. And he was the ultimate capitalist, big time Republican, Barry Goldwater Republican. All right. And and he allowed me to sitting in boardrooms, in meetings, because I was doing programming on the financial sides and accounting, and so I sat in on board meetings at 22 years old. Okay, and so I got a early introduction as to how boards work and how that interaction between the board and the management team. All right. And then he stated to me, they said, you will make a very good living at Milliken, but you need to start your own company is what you need to do. He said, I had the right father. I had the right father. You did not, unfortunately, okay, in your situation. Because you go and you start a company, you can now go and make a difference. You can be that beacon on the hill that other people of color can look toward in building companies and building economic commerce is what you can do. And I left Milliken and went to work with AT&T Bell Labs. That's what I did. And from there, I started my own company. And in starting my company there, AT&T gave me the opportunity in a partnership with them to open up an office in Malaysia. So that's how I in Southeast Asia, with the partnership, my employer, who I resigned for, and was working on the project in which when I resigned from, on that project, and then a new project that came up in Malaysia, and I partnered with them, and that's how I came into Malaysia. That's how I went to China. That's how I went to South Africa, et cetera. It's how that happened. And I always had this thing of taking care of the people. From a benefit side of the house, we give our employees 25% of their W-2 earnings. We put that in a retirement account for them. No contribution from them. So whatever their W-2 earnings were at the end of the year, 25% of that went into a retirement account. Okay, so again, taking care of those who take care of you. And not only did I get that from my being a sharecropper, but also, too, from the staunch Republican who also took care of his people. Roger was anal about taking care of his people. And one of the ways he did that is that every manager had to be evaluated by them, by their direct reports. And if they did not get a ranking of 80 or above, they got terminated. Because if you have unsatisfied people, guess what? Productivity goes down. Lost time accidents happen, okay, etc. And also labor unions. He didn't like labor unions. He said, if you treat your people right, you invest in them, you educate them, there's no problem. There's no friction. And he educated the employees, lots and lots of training. If a job was being discontinued, he trained them on other jobs. And there was another job within the company, then he would send them to the vocational schools, and get them topped off on a skill that they could, so that they can have a soft landing. He was all about a soft landing. And we have lost that today. We have absolutely lost that. Okay?
Yeah.
It's what has happened. And so that is what has ingrained me and gave me this charge and this passion to help companies understand that you're not giving up anything. You're gaining is what you're doing. And so by treating people right, all right, is what you do. And because if you think about me sitting in that cotton field, I started picking cotton when I was 6 years old. And I would squat down in the field when the bus came by because I was ashamed of the other kids seeing me out in the cotton field. And if you think about the fact that, how did I think about coming from picking cotton to programming computers, PC to PC? Picking cotton to programming computers, which is the name of the book, title of the book that I'm writing. And the looking up in the sky and thinking, is this my future? And the answer was no. I knew then that was not my future. That was a better day. That was a better way. And I'm trying to, along with this band of people and being affiliated with Conscious Capitalism and what we're doing in Conscious Capitalism, to be able to help leaders understand that our self-interest is aligned with stakeholders. It's what it is aligned with. You will make a hell of a lot more that you ever could achieve if you did not bring them along with you. And if not, you will not be in business. Just that simple.
Again, it's so often at one level, it's common sense. Treat people well. They'll bring their best to work. You'll get the best out of them, and you'll be more productive. And yet it's so little in terms of how uncommon that common sense is.
Right.
But I want to ask like one more question, sort of at a practical level. So a lot of people in our audience are going to be small, medium-sized entrepreneurs or CEOs or family businesses. And the interesting question becomes, what are one or two takeaways for them today, Roosevelt, in terms of one or two practical things they can do with their boards? Because they're more on the private side of things. And when you think about private boards, what are one or two pieces of advice you have that you think they need to be paying attention to or following up on?
Yeah. Private boards, in a sense, is no different than a public board, especially if you have multiple shareholders. And in a lot of instances, you have a controlling shareholder. You have the founder that owns the majority or 100%, of the company. And what does that individual want to do? That individual wants this company to live in perpetuity. All right, for their kids, their grandkids, estates, and just keep, going on down the line. And one of the things is that to communicate, bring your employees into the discussion. Okay, they understand business. They understand. All right, they understand the cycles. Cycles. If I'm a heister driver and I'm loading the trucks, and I noticed that today we only had 5 trucks. Last week we had 10 trucks. They're doing the math. That business is slowing down. All right. It's what is happening here. And so communicate. All right. And by doing that, and also let them understand how the company makes money. Give them a living wage, above a living wage. Give them benefits. All right. And by doing that, you're taking a lot of pressure off of them of not having to go to payday lenders, title loan companies, okay? Because once you get on that treadmill, you will never get off of it. And so they should be doing a worker wellness check, financial wellness check, all right, is to understand where the employees are, okay, financially, all right, and how the company can help them. And bring in, there's a lot of nonprofits that can help for-profit companies on helping the employee get their credit scores up. Because I get my credit scores up, then I'm not paying, my cost of acquiring things, goes down. That's what happened. And also helping employees from a health standpoint, helping them to bringing in a consultant to speak to them, about diets and all of those types of things. Because you don't want all of this absenteeism. All right, it's what you don't want. And last but not least, that we're seeing companies do is bringing in psychologists, mental health, because there's a lot of stress out there, a heck of a lot of stress, and a lot of the employees don't have anywhere to go. They don't have anywhere to go, and having that be that's confidential, is done online with someone, and by doing that, you are building a workforce that's going to go out and they're going to be your recruiter. They're going to bring in the best people. When they bring in the best people, they're going to be the monitor of that person. All right. My reputation was on the line, Roosevelt, to bring you in. So you're not going to be goofing off is what you're not going to be doing. And that's what happened when I was coming up the ranks and in my companies. The employees were the best recruiters. And also, they took the company home with them. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me unpack that for a second. What do you mean taking the company home with them? And the manager went home with them. It was a mindset. I go home and I tell the wife and family, the company's going to take care of us. The company, you can depend on the company to take care of us. Everything is going to be okay. When you see that negative news on social media and all of this stuff, the company is going to take care of us. And if these private companies go about doing that because they don't have all the regulatory overhang, hanging around them, they will thrive. And when it comes down to you got to cut salaries and you got to cut some benefits, they're all right there with you. Because I had that happen to me on several occasions, and they're the ones that came up with how much they wanted to take a cut. They took a 40% pay cut. They brought it to me. Okay? And so these are simple things to do. Communicate, understand where they are. Do a wellness check on them. And you will be totally shocked on the feedback and how that will buy loyalty that could never happen with a bonus, a financial bonus.
Well, Roosevelt, your story is extraordinary, and you are an extraordinary leader. So we're really grateful to have you with us here as well as on our board. And one of the other dimensions that Timothy mentioned up front was your propensity, let us say, for marathons. So you run.
Yes, the marathon man.
More marathons than probably, I don't know how many humans on Earth have run more than you. 370 of them, which is just extraordinary. And you did how many of them in 1 year? Like your brother left you thing, and then you did. So tell us a little bit on the marathon side, and which any marathon stands out of all of those? There's a,
it started 10 years. 10 years started in 2013, and 2013 around October 2013 when my brother succumbed to was diagnosed with lung cancer. And he went into hospice, and I would only do a 5K or 10K race, and I would do like a couple of miles a week, just to stay tuned up type of thing. And I did a 10K, and I came back and I gave him the medal. I said, James, I did this for you. And later that night he said, I want you to do me a favor. And I said, what? You got to promise me you're going to do it. I said, what is it? Promise you're going to do it. Okay, I'll do it. And he said, I want you to run a marathon in all 50 states and all 7 continents, and I'll be with you. And I almost fell out of my shoe. All right. And I said, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done here?
That's
big
all.
ass.
Yeah.
And so my brother was number 2 out of the 10, and I'm number 9. So there was, all these sisters in the middle. So he was, our dad transitioned when I was 17. So he took on the role of my dad, and we were very close. And he told my sister he knew that his absence was going to hit me hard. And so he wanted me to go out and do something that's going to keep my mind off of him. Give me this challenging thing there. And friends of mine and other people said, Rizzo, are you really going to do that? I said, yeah, I gave him my word. Yeah, and I'm going to keep it. So January the 7th, I ran my first marathon. And December 7th, I finished in Hawaii, all 50 states. So I did it all in 1 year. And so
so
it's
you ran
amazing.
50 marathons in 1 year, from a 10K in October to a year later having run 50 in all states. Man,
you didn't hurt your knees, you didn't hurt your body. I mean, your body can take it.
And this is, and I had this shrine on my cap, my memorial for my brother James Giles. So I wore this, and then the following year I did the continents, including Antarctica. Is what I did, and from there I had a Forrest Gump moment.
Run,
We all know
Roosevelt,
what
run.
Forrest then. I just want to run, right? So I kept going, and I'm almost now at the who have looped the 50 states 5 times in a different city in the 50 states, and I've run the 7 continents 3 times now, but including Antarctica again. I've done 64 countries, and so it's a and I've met some unbelievable people along the way. Is what I have met. And typically, when you're doing a marathon, people have signs out to motivate you and all of that. And in Cape Town, doing the Cape Town South Africa marathon, there's a sign, 2 signs that really struck me. One sign said, "One day you won't be able to do this, but the day is not that day." So think about that for a moment. That applies to anything. One day you won't be able to feed yourself, but the day is not that day. One day you won't be able to drive your car, but the day is not that day. So it applies to anything. The second quote was, "The body will do anything. It's the mind you have to convince. Mind over matter," right? And those two struck with me. And when I did the Antarctica the first time, I bet I quoted the one that said, "Roosevelt, one day you won't be able to do this, but the day is not that day. Roosevelt, you won't be able to do this." It was tough. It took me like 15 hours to finish that thing.
Oh my God!
It was brutal.
Wow.
It was brutal.
Was it over ice and over snow? Was it the ground was
ice, snow, wind? I mean, it was like -5 below zero. I mean, it was brutal. Oh my God, it was brutal. And but what it demonstrates is that the capacity of the human being. You have no idea the capacity that we have. And if you had told me in October of 2013, "Roosevelt, you're going to run a marathon," I said, "You out of your mind. There's no way I'm doing that." Yeah, and so that's how it happened, and I wanted to make him proud. Is what I wanted to do. The fact that I made that commitment to him to do it, and thank God I did it. And so it has taken me places inside myself that I've never been. That is the best gift he could have given me.
Well, in memory of your brother James, and for all you do for the world, Roosevelt, for all you do for conscious capitalism, thank you. Thank you for being who you are.
Well, we want a lot of leaders out here, CEOs, board members, emerging leaders, to come along with us on this capitalism journey. Okay? Because the world needs us. The world is begging for us. And coming with us, we will help you. We will help you in those rough patches, is what we'll do. And help you, all right, so you can in turn help others. So join the conscious capital movement, because it is a movement. And so we want thousands and millions of individuals, all right, to come along with us so we can make this world a better place. There's no other organization, okay, will give you the tools that you need and the thought leadership that you need in order to be a good steward.
I love that, Roosevelt, obviously. And I think if not now, then when? If not you, then who? And the world has never needed people like yourself and this movement more than it does now. So thank you for
Because
all you do.
One day you won't be able to do this, but the day is not that day.
That's right. There you go. That's going to stick. That's going to stick. I'm going to use that one, when it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it's dark and it's cold out. And do I really want to go to the gym?
Yep. Yes, indeed.
I do, because one day I won't be able to do this.
That's correct.
Well, thank you, Roosevelt. And
thank you, partners.
And thank you to our listeners. And if you enjoyed today's podcast on whatever channel you're listening to, please hit the subscription button and pass this on to your friends and family that might be interested in this. And finally, if you have any thoughts or comments, please go over to Apple and iTunes and leave us a score and give us some feedback. And as always, thank you to Conscious Capitalism, Inc. for sponsoring this program, and for Rainbow Productions for helping with making sure it comes out each week. Thank you, Rainbow. Thank you, Roosevelt. Raj,
Thank you.
We'll see you later. Be well.
Thank you, partners.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you all. Thank you,
All
Roosevelt.
right, thank you. Thank you.